He was running barefoot down the alley when the wallet slipped. He was running barefoot down the alley when the wallet slipped from his hand. Jamie froze. The leather felt too soft, too real in his dirty fingers. It had weight, the kind that didn't belong to someone like him. The boy, no older than 12, looked down at it like it might explode. Around him, the late November wind howled between the buildings, but he didn't notice. Not yet. He had never held something like this before. Minutes earlier, he'd been crouched at his usual spot, a wooden crate and a Shoeshine box at the corner of 8th and Maple. The Grandwood Hotel stood tall above him, all glass and gold, with people walking in and out like they owned the world. He didn't. He barely owned the crust of bread he'd eaten that morning. His hands were cracked from scrubbing boots in the cold. His coat had holes in the sleeves, but he was used to being invisible, until the man stepped out of the silver Mercedes. Tall, confident, wearing a deep navy suit with a shine like midnight under the sun. The man walked with purpose, phone to his ear, coffee in one hand, no time for the world. As he passed Jamie's stand, his coat brushed against the boy's head, and something slipped from his pocket. The wallet. It hit the pavement with a dull thud, unnoticed by anyone. Not the man, not the doorman, no one but Jamie. For a second, the world stopped. Jamie looked left, then right. The man had already vanished into the hotel, the revolving doors spinning silently behind him. No one had seen it drop. He stared at the wallet, then slowly, carefully, he picked it up. It was heavier than he expected. Smooth leather, well kept, definitely expensive. Jamie's heart pounded. His fingers itched. He opened it just enough to peek inside. His breath caught in his throat. 5 thick bills, $1,000 bills, a sleek black credit card, and an ID. Marcus T. Grayson, CEO, Grayson Capital Group. Jamie didn't know what Grayson Capital was, but CEO, that sounded like someone big, important, dangerous maybe. He should have run. He thought about it. His legs twitched with the idea. That kind of money could change everything. He could eat for weeks, buy shoes, maybe even get a place to sleep indoors. But something stopped him, something that felt like his mama's voice in his head, though she'd been gone nearly 2 years now. What you do when no one's watching, that's who you are, Jamie. So he did the unthinkable. He walked straight toward the grand entrance, the wallet held tight in both hands. The doorman spotted him right away. "Hey kid, you can't go in there." Jamie didn't stop. "I'm not stealing," he shouted. "A man dropped this." The doorman narrowed his eyes and stepped forward. "Let me see that." Jamie held it out, reluctant but firm. He had a suit. Blue. Went inside. "I swear." The doorman flipped it open, and his face changed. He didn't say anything, just turned and walked inside. Jamie waited. 5 minutes passed. People walked in and out, glancing at him like he was trash. Someone had forgotten to sweep away. He rubbed his fingers together to stay warm. Doubt crawled up his spine. Maybe they'd just take it. Maybe he'd never see the man again. But then the doors opened, and Marcus Grayson stepped out. He didn't look like someone who smiled often. Tall, sharp jaw, salt and pepper hair combed back with military precision. His eyes locked onto Jamie, with unnerving focus. "You found my wallet." Jamie nodded. "Didn't know who to give it to. You opened it." "I just looked to see whose it was. I didn't take nothing." Grayson's expression didn't change. He opened the wallet himself, counted the money, checked the cards. Then slowly, very slowly, he looked back at Jamie. "You could have taken all of it. No one would have known." Jamie's throat tightened. Didn't feel right. There was a pause. Then, to Jamie's shock, Grayson reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a sleek silver business card, and scribbled something on the back with a black pen. He handed it to Jamie. "Come to this address, tomorrow, 10 sharp." Jamie stared at it. "Grayson Capital, 12th floor, Midtown Plaza on the back. Tell them I sent you." "Is it for a reward?" Jamie asked softly. Grayson didn't smile. "No," he said. "It's for something better." And then, without another word, he turned and disappeared into the lobby. Jamie stood frozen. Something better. He didn't sleep much that night. The wind howled through the broken window of the abandoned house he stayed in, but he didn't feel the cold. He was too busy dreaming. Maybe it was food, a job, a scholarship. What else could it be? No one had ever offered Jamie better. Not ever. At 9:59 a.m. the next morning, Jamie stood in front of Midtown Plaza. His shoes were still worn, but he'd wiped the dust off his shirt and washed his face in a gas station sink. He clutched the card like it was a golden ticket. Inside, the receptionist barely looked at him until she saw the card. Her eyes widened. "You're expected. Go ahead." In the elevator, Jamie watched the numbers climb, floor after floor. When it stopped at 12, a man in a charcoal suit greeted him. This way he was led into a long, sleek boardroom. Glass walls, shiny floors, white furniture that looked too expensive to touch. "Wait here." Jamie sat alone. 10 minutes, then 15. Finally, the door opened. Grayson walked in, and he wasn't alone. 3 other men followed, all in tailored suits with unreadable faces. Grayson sat across from Jamie. "You could have taken the money," he said, "but you didn't." "Why?" Jamie swallowed. "Didn't seem right." Grayson nodded slowly, then said something that made Jamie's skin prickle. "You work outside hotels, on street corners. You see and hear things, don't you?" Jamie's heart skipped. "What if I told you I need someone like that? Someone small, quiet, invisible." "For what?" Jamie asked. "To listen," Grayson replied, "and bring me what you hear." Jamie hesitated. "I'll pay you a lot." A silence hung in the air. Then Jamie whispered, "Okay." Grayson smiled for the first time. "Good, because what you find next could destroy me." Jamie blinked. "What?" But Grayson was already standing. "See you tomorrow, Jamie." And what Jamie didn't know was that his first mission would uncover a truth so dark it would put him in danger. A danger he could never run from. What Jamie hears behind the curtain wasn't supposed to be heard. Jamie showed up at the Grayson Capitol building exactly at 10 a.m. like the card said. He wasn't used to being on time. He wasn't used to being wanted anywhere. But this was different. This was his chance. Whatever it was Grayson saw in him yesterday, Jamie didn't want to lose it. He had no idea what kind of work this really was, but he knew enough to keep his mouth shut and his eyes open. The receptionist recognized him immediately and nodded him through without a word. The same suited man from yesterday escorted him down a hallway and stopped at a different room, smaller, darker, with a single leather chair and a wall of monitors. At the far end, Grayson stood with his back to Jamie, staring out the window. "Sit," he said, without turning. Jamie obeyed. Grayson finally turned around, arms crossed, voice calm. "Don't expect you to understand all the rules yet, but I'm going to tell you something, Jamie. In this city, people don't get rich by playing fair. They get rich by knowing the right things before everyone else." He walked over and placed a small black device in Jamie's hand. It looked like a Bluetooth earpiece, but sleeker, high-tech. "This," he said, "is your tool. You'll wear it. Keep your ears open and listen for anything useful. Information about deals, affairs, corruption, competitors. Anything someone like me should know." Jamie looked up, unsure. "You want me to spy?" "I want you to listen," Grayson said sharply. "People talk around Shoeshine boys, around janitors, around drivers. They forget you're even there." Jamie's throat went dry. "What if I get caught?" Grayson leaned in. "You won't. You're invisible, Jamie. That's your power." A knock interrupted them. Another suited man stepped in and handed Grayson a folder, then left. Grayson glanced at it, then back at Jamie. "I want you to start with the Oak Tree Cafe downtown. Politicians, bankers, lawyers, they meet there and talk freely. You shine their shoes, you listen. Bring me anything that stands out." Jamie nodded slowly. "One more thing," Grayson said, his tone shifting slightly. "No one can know you work for me, ever. Not even someone you trust." Jamie nodded again. Grayson held his gaze for a long second. "You do this right, Jamie. You'll never go hungry again." That afternoon, Jamie found himself standing in front of Oak Cafe. It was nothing like the greasy diners he usually hovered near. This place was glassy and modern, with jazz playing low in the background and sharply dressed people sipping expensive coffee. He didn't belong here, but then again, maybe that's what made him perfect for this job. He set up his shoe boxed outside and waited, but within 20 minutes, a businessman with a loosened tie and crocodile skin shoes walked up. "Shoosh," Jamie offered. The man nodded and sat down on the bench beside him, opening his briefcase. As Jamie went to work on the shoes, he kept his head low and the earpiece activated. Another man joined the first and started talking. "I told you, backing out of the Harborfront project. Too much press lately." The other one hissed, "He can't back out now. The land transfers already went through. If the zoning board finds out, We're cooked. Jamie's ears perked up. They kept talking, throwing around names, numbers, locations. He had no idea what it all meant, but he remembered every word. That night, he returned to Grayson Capital. The same dark room, the same chair. Grayson listened silently as Jamie recited what he'd heard. When Jamie finished, Grayson stood motionless, for a moment, staring at him. "You remember all that?" he asked. Jamie nodded. Grayson stepped forward, took the notes Jamie scribbled, and studied them. Then, almost quietly, he said, "You just saved me $3 million. Jamie's eyes widened. "What?" Grayson didn't explain. He simply walked over to a drawer, pulled out an envelope, and handed it to Jamie. Inside, $1,000 in cash. Jamie nearly dropped it. He'd never held that much money in his life, not even close. "For you," Grayson said. "More if you keep listening," Jamie stammered. What do I even do with this?" "Anything you want," Grayson said. Jamie stuffed the envelope deep into his pocket, feeling dizzy. He left the building in a haze, the cold night air hitting his face like a wave. But that night, something happened. Jamie had nowhere to sleep but the usual abandoned bookstore on Elridge Street. He curled up in the back room, using an old curtain as a blanket, but he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the man with the briefcase, the one who'd said something about the zoning board, and how Grayson had smiled like a wolf when he heard it. Jamie didn't know exactly what he'd gotten himself into, but something told him it wasn't as simple as just listening. The next morning, Jamie was back at the cafe. Only this time, a different man showed up. Late 30s, expensive coat, glasses, talked too loudly on the phone. He sat down, barely acknowledging Jamie, as Jamie started shining. The man said into the phone, "Look, I'm telling you, Grayson can't know yet, not until we finish moving the accounts. Otherwise, it's over." Jamie stopped brushing for half a second. "Grayson," the man continued, laughing nervously. "He still thinks the Ridgewell Fund is solvent. Poor guy has no idea I moved half the assets to a shell account in Caymans." Jamie froze. Did he just hear what he thought he heard? The man finished the call and stood up. Didn't tip, just walked off. Jamie sat there, stunned. This wasn't a secret about someone else. This was a secret about Grayson. A betrayal. That evening, Jamie didn't go straight to Grayson's office. He sat on the steps outside the building for almost an hour, his fingers clutching the worn edge of his Shoeshine box. Should he tell him? Would Grayson believe him? Or worse, what if Grayson already knew? Eventually, Jamie climbed the steps, buzzed in, and took the elevator. But when the doors opened on the 12th floor, something was off. The lights were low, the hallway empty. And Grayson wasn't waiting for him in the usual room. Instead, one of the suited men from before appeared. He didn't smile. "Follow me," Jamie did cautiously. They turned down a different corridor, one Jamie hadn't seen before. The man opened a plain door at the end and stepped aside. "Inside," he said. Jamie walked in slowly. The room was dim and empty, except for a single wooden chair and a camera mounted in the corner. The door slammed shut behind him. Locked. Jamie's single quote's heart dropped. The room was silent. Until the voice in the wall spoke. Jamie stood in the center of the small, dim room. There were no windows, no furniture, except the one wooden chair in the middle. No noise, until he heard the soft click of the lock behind him. He turned fast. The door was shut. Locked. His heart started to pound. The walls were a cold shade of gray. In the top corner of the room, a black camera blinked slowly, its red light glowing like an unblinking eye. Jamie didn't know where to look. He didn't know what this was. And then, a voice filled the room. Not loud, not angry, just cold. "Sit down, Jamie." He froze. It was Grayson, no doubt. But the voice wasn't coming from the door. It was coming from a speaker hidden somewhere in the wall. "Why am I in here?" Jamie asked, backing toward the chair. "Because we have a problem," Grayson said. Jamie sat slowly, his legs trembling. "I sent you to listen, Jamie, to gather information. But now, you bring me something that doesn't make sense." Jamie swallowed. "You mean about the guy at the cafe?" "Yes," Grayson replied. "The one who said your name." Jamie blinked. "He never said my name." "He said my name," Grayson corrected, loudly, carelessly. "And he said things that no one outside this office should know." Jamie stayed quiet. His hands were gripped tight around his knees. "So here's the real question," Grayson continued. "Why would someone say that in front of a Shoeshine boy? Unless they wanted to be overheard." Jamie's eyes widened. You think it was a trap? I think someone knows I'm using ears in the street, Grayson said. And now I need to noted. They get to you, Jamie. Jamie's chest tightened. No, I didn't tell anyone, I swear. A long silence followed. Then the voice returned, softer. I want to believe you. Jamie stood. I wouldn't lie to you. I just did what you said. I listened. Another pause. Then, good. Jamie exhaled in relief. But it was short-lived. The door behind him clicked open again. A different man stepped inside, bald, big hands, black gloves. This is Charles, Grayson said. He's going to ask you a few more questions. Privately, Jamie backed away. Why? I already told you everything. Relax, the voice said. If you're telling the truth, you'll be out of here in 10 minutes. Charles nodded without a word. Jamie didn't argue anymore, but inside, something broke. This wasn't the job he thought it was. This wasn't about right and wrong. This was a world where people vanished when they knew too much. A world where loyalty wasn't trusted. It was tested. For the next hour, Charles asked him questions, over and over. Same ones, different order. Who did you tell? Did you keep any notes? Did anyone approach you since the last time you came here? Did you record anything? Jamie answered them all, truthfully. Eventually, Charles nodded and stood. You can go, he said, unlocking the door. Jamie walked out, his legs stiff, his back drenched in sweat. In the hallway, Grayson was waiting. His eyes were cold and unreadable. You passed, he said flatly. Jamie didn't smile. He couldn't. Grayson stepped closer. But understand something, Jamie. In my world, when someone lies, they don't get a second chance. Jamie nodded slowly. Then Grayson did something unexpected. He reached into his coat and pulled out another envelope, even thicker than the last one. This is for your work, he said, and for not running. Jamie hesitated, then took it. He didn't look inside. He just slipped it into his back pocket. Go home, Grayson said. We'll call you when we need you. Jamie turned and walked toward the elevator. But inside, something had shifted. This wasn't just a job anymore. It was a trap he couldn't walk away from. That night, Jamie didn't go back to the abandoned bookstore. He didn't even go to the alley where he sometimes slept in a cardboard box behind the deli. He went to someone he hadn't seen in a long time. Donnie, she was 15, smarter than him, fiercer. She lived in a halfway house a few blocks down from Aldridge Station. Jamie hadn't seen her in months, not since she got out of juvie for shoplifting. But tonight, he needed to talk. She opened the door and blinked when she saw him. Jamie. Dang, I thought you were dead. Can I come in? She hesitated, then stepped aside. You got 5 minutes. Mrs. Lowe don't play. They sat on the floor of her shared room. He told her everything, not Grayson's name, not the building, but the rest, the Shoeshine spying, the secret he'd heard, the camera room, the man with gloves. When he finished, Donnie stared at him for a long time. You're in something deep, she said. Jamie nodded. I know, and you trust this guy. Jamie hesitated. I did. Then why you look so scared? He didn't answer. Donnie leaned closer. If someone was stealing from your boss and you found out, what would you do? Jamie's eyes narrowed. I'd tell him. And if you found out your boss was the one doing the stealing? Jamie blinked. That idea hadn't occurred to him before, but now that it had, it wouldn't leave. The next day, Jamie didn't go back to Grayson's office. He went back to the Oak Tree Cafe. He needed answers, not just whispers, but truth. He sat behind his Shoeshine box, watching faces, listening. 3 hours passed. Nothing. Then, near lunchtime, the same man from before, the one with the expensive coat and glasses, walked past again. Jamie's heart thumped. This time, the man didn't sit for a shine. He walked straight to a bench and made a call. His voice low but clear. Jamie tilted his head, pretending to adjust his brush. I told you, the man was saying, Grayson still thinks the Ridgewell fund is clean. But once we pull the final transfer, he's exposed. And if he opens his mouth, he's going down with us. Jamie froze. The man stood up. His eyes flicked toward Jamie. Dat, and for a split second, just a second, he smirked. Then he walked away. Jamie sat in silence. He wasn't sure what was worse. The idea that Grayson was being betrayed, or the idea that he already knew, and was playing a deeper game. The folder Jamie found wasn't meant for his eyes. Jamie's head buzzed with questions as he walked the long way back toward the train tracks. He wasn't going home. Not yet. He couldn't. That smirk, the one from the man with the coat, it wasn't just confidence. It was like he knew Jamie was listening. Like Jamie was a chess piece on a board someone else was controlling. And suddenly, for the first time since all this began, Jamie had a sick feeling that Grayson wasn't the one moving the pieces. He sat behind a dumpster on Bleecker Avenue, hands buried in his coat. The envelope Grayson had given him was still in his pocket. He hadn't touched the money. It felt cursed now, like the closer he got to the truth, the heavier that money became. He had to know more. So that night, Jamie made a decision, one he knew could get him killed if he wasn't careful. He was going back to Grayson Capital alone. After hours. 11:15 p.m., the Midtown Plaza lobby was almost empty. The security guard behind the desk was half asleep, his chair tipped back. Jamie slipped through the side entrance he'd seen janitors use before. He'd watched them for weeks, learning which doors beeped, which floors had cameras. No one paid attention to the Shoeshine boy, and that was exactly what Grayson always said. You're invisible. Jamie, tonight, that was his weapon. He climbed the stairwell, all 12 floors, quiet, focused. When he reached the Grayson Capital office, he stopped at the service door. Locked. Jamie pulled out the card Grayson gave him, the one with the chip in the corner. It wasn't meant for this door, but maybe. He slid it slowly. Beep, green light. His pulse kicked into overdrive. Inside, the offices were ghostly. Chairs sat pushed in, computers dark, phones blinking silently in the dark. Jamie crept past the boardroom, past the glass hallways, past the coffee machine that always hissed like a snake in the morning. He headed toward the room they sometimes took him to, the one where Grayson listened. But as he passed the hallway near Grayson's personal office, he stopped. The door was cracked open, and the light was on. His breath hitched. Maybe someone was still here. He crouched low and crept forward. No footsteps, no voices. Carefully, he pushed the door open a little farther. Empty, but something strange sat on Grayson's desk, a folder, thick, unlabeled. Open. Jamie knew he shouldn't, but curiosity overruled fear. He stepped inside, closed the door quietly behind him, then walked to the desk and opened the folder. And what he saw inside nearly made him sit down. Photos of him, of Jamie, some taken from across the street. One near the old bookstore where he used to sleep. One of him shining shoes outside the Oak Tree Cafe. Another, from a rooftop, zoomed in, showing Jamie walking near Donnie's halfway house. There were notes, too, typed and stapled. Subject, Jamie Tillman. Age, approx 12. Mother, deceased. Father, unknown. Criminal record, none. Street activity monitor. Jamie flipped the page. Another note, handwritten in red ink. Kid is useful, but if he turns, we bury it. Bury it. He felt the room spin. This wasn't about trust. This wasn't about giving a poor kid a chance. This was surveillance, insurance, a backup plan in case Jamie ever went off script. He stepped back from the desk, like the folder had bitten him, and that's when something caught his eye under the papers. Tucked inside a sealed envelope marked private. He pulled it out and opened it. Inside was a contract. Signed, between Marcus Grayson and Harold Vennett, the same man Jamie had overheard at the cafe. The one with the coat. The contract was dated 2 months ago. But that didn't make sense. Grayson had acted surprised when Jamie brought him info about Vennett. Said the man was working against him, so why was there a contract between them? Jamie scanned the fine print. It was dense, filled with legal jargon, but one line stood out. Agreed upon transfer of Ridgewell Fund assets to offshore accounts via shell entities under Grayson Capital Management. His mouth went dry. They weren't enemies. They were partners. The whole thing, the spying, the eavesdropping, the paranoia, it had been theater, a setup. Jamie hadn't been protecting Grayson from betrayal. He was helping Grayson cover one up. Jamie backed out of the room slowly. He didn't know what to think. His brain screamed, run. But his legs moved like they were underwater. Suddenly, behind him, a noise. Click. He spun around. A silhouette stood at the end of the hallway. Charles, the man with the gloves. They locked eyes. Charles didn't speak. He just stepped forward, slowly, like a predator in the dark. Jamie bolted down the hallway, around the corner, toward the elevator. No, to slow the stairs. He flew down the steps 2 at a time, heart hammering, the folder still in his hands. He reached the alley behind the building. breathing so hard he could barely stand. The folder was wet now from his hands, but he had it proofed out. The only question was, what now? Who could he trust with something this big? Certainly not Grayson, and maybe not even the police. He needed someone who had nothing to gain, and in his mind, one name rose above the rest: Donnie. The next morning, Jamie showed up at her halfway house, pale, exhausted, shaking. He told her everything, showed her the photos, the contract. And when he finished, Donnie didn't blink. "We need to go public," she said. Jamie's voice cracked. "They'll find us." "Let them try," she snapped. "We're not playing their game anymore." She stood and grabbed her hoodie. "Come on, where are we going?" Donnie turned to him, eyes sharp and blazing. "To someone who hates Grayson even more than we do. The truth reaches the wrong ears first." Donnie had that look in her eyes again, the one Jamie had only seen once before, back when she stood up to two older boys trying to take their spot under the bridge during winter. She'd walked away with a black eye but didn't flinch once. She was dangerous when she believed in something, and right now, she believed in the truth. "We need someone bigger than Grayson," she said, as they rode the city bus toward Midtown, both pressed against the cracked window like shadows trying to stay small. "Someone in the press. Someone who doesn't care how much money that man has." Jamie hugged the folder tight under his hoodie. "What if they don't believe us? They will. You've got pictures, contracts, and you're a kid. If they don't believe you, they'll believe the outrage." The bus screeched to a halt. They got off 3 blocks from the Daily Ledger, the oldest and most respected newspaper in the city. Donnie had done her research. She'd found a journalist, a woman named Margot Lane, known for exposing government fraud and corruption. She was sharp, fearless, and had a reputation for hating corporate cover-ups. Exactly what they needed. They waited outside the building until a woman in a red wool coat stepped out, coffee in hand, phone pressed to her ear. Donnie stepped forward. "Fast, Ms. Lane." The woman stopped mid-step, one brow rising. "Yes, we need to talk," Donnie said. "It's about Marcus Grayson. We have something huge." Lane hesitated. Her eyes flicked to Jamie, then to the manila folder clutched to his chest. She lowered the phone slowly. "Walk with me," she said. They followed her down the street, ducking into a nearby coffee shop. Jamie slid the folder across the table. Lane opened it and scanned the contents without a word. Photo after photo, notes, copies of the contract, the offshore transfers, and the line that proved Grayson and Bennett had been working together all along. When she finished reading, she looked up at Jamie. "You found all this?" "I didn't mean to," he said softly. "He asked me to spy for him. Listen, but then I heard something, and I found this." Lane leaned back, thoughtful. "You understand, if I run this story, it's not just Grayson who goes down. His company, his partners, the Ridgewell Fund. It'll ripple across the whole financial district." Donnie leaned forward. "So what are you waiting for?" Lane studied them both for another second, then nodded. "Okay, I'll verify everything. If it checks out, it hits the front page tomorrow." Jamie felt his chest loosen for the first time in days. They'd done it, but as they left the coffee shop, a man in a grey coat watched from across the street. His phone was already to his ear. That night, Jamie and Donnie stayed at a friend's place. Someone Donnie trusted, a woman who used to live on the streets herself, before opening a halfway home for teens. She gave them food, blankets, and silence. Jamie couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about what Grayson would do when the story broke. Would he deny it? Try to pin it on someone else? Would he come after them? The next morning, they rushed to grab a copy of the Daily Ledger from a corner stand. They flipped to the front page, but Grayson's face wasn't there. Jamie's stomach sank. They scanned every page. Nothing. Not a single mention of the folder, or the photos, or the Ridgewell Fund. Dottie froze. She backed out. Jamie shook his head. No, she wouldn't. He reached into his hoodie and pulled out the business card Margot Lane had given him. He dialed the number, straight to voicemail. He tried again. Same thing. Donnie's fists clenched. Something's wrong. They made their way back to the Ledger's building, but at the front desk, the security guard shook his head. "Margot Lane doesn't work here anymore." Jamie blinked. "What?" "She was let go early this morning. Papers under new ownership." Donnie turned to Jamie slowly. "Grayson." He didn't need to respond. They both knew he'd moved faster. The truth had reached the wrong ears first. That night, they met back in the alley behind the diner where they used to scrounge for scraps. Jamie felt numb, angry, tired. tired. She promised. He whispered. She looked me in the eye. Donnie paced like a storm. He'd bought her out, or the paper, or both. Maybe scared her into silence. But she said she was different. She was, Donnie said softly, until Grayson reminded her who runs this city. Jamie leaned against the wall, breath fogging in the cold. So what now? Donnie didn't answer right away. Then she reached into her coat and pulled out an old flip phone. This isn't over, she said. I have one last move. Jamie looked up. Who? She paused. Someone who used to work for Grayson, a whistleblower. She went missing 2 years ago. Everyone thought she fled. You'd think she's still alive. Donnie nodded. I don't just think it, I know it. Jamie stood slowly. Where is she? Across the river, Donnie whispered. In hiding. She's scared. But if we can get to her, she could prove everything. Jamie finished. Donnie nodded. But we have to go now. If Grayson learns, we know about her. A sound cut her off. Behind them, a quiet clink. Jamie turned. A figure stood at the mouth of the alley. Not Charles. Someone worse. Grayson himself, in a long black coat. Almost smiling. Well, he said, you've been busy. Donnie stepped in front of Jamie. You don't scare us. You should be scared. Grayson replied. I trusted you. Jamie shouted. You said you were giving me a chance. I did, Grayson said. And you failed. You weren't ready for this world. You thought it was about truth. He laughed coldly. It's about power. Jamie's fists clenched. You can't. Silence everyone. Grayson stepped forward. No, but I can silence you. He snapped his fingers. Footsteps. 2 men emerged from the shadows. Jamie and Donnie backed up, but there was nowhere left to run. He thought they were powerless, but he forgot one thing. Jamie's back hit the cold brick wall. Donnie stood in front of him like a shield, shoulders squared, fists clenched, eyes locked on the 2 men closing in. Grayson remained still at the alley's mouth, the faint glow of the street lamp painting a halo around his head. Ironic, considering the devilish grin spreading across his face. You had your chance, Jamie, he said, voice smooth as silk. You could have had everything, but you chose to bite the hand that fed you. You were never feeding me, Jamie snapped. You were using me. Grayson nodded, almost admiringly. Smart boy, too smart for his own good. The men kept approaching. Donnie's voice was low and urgent. Run when I say. Don't argue, Jamie whispered. Where they'll catch us. I'm not talking to you, she muttered. Just keep your eyes open. Grayson took another step forward, still calm. You won't make it to the bridge. We'll make sure of that. Donnie took a deep breath and reached into her coat pocket. Wrong again, she said. And then she pressed a button on a small device barely visible in her palm. Grayson's expression changed instantly. A low buzzing sound echoed through the alley. A faint click, then a sharp electronic ping, hidden above them, behind a loose brick in the wall. A tiny wireless camera blinked red. Grayson's eyes widened. We've been recording you, Donnie said. Since you showed up here. Grayson stepped back. You're bluffing, am I? Donnie raised her voice slightly. Say hi to your offshore friends, Mr. Grayson. We've streamed this live, direct to a private cloud, and a backup server, and another one, and another one. Jamie stepped out from behind. Her now, his voice steady, and to her, Grayson froze. Her, Jamie nodded. The whistleblower. You thought she was gone, but she's been waiting, and watching. All we had to do was connect the dots. Grayson's 2 men hesitated. They looked at each other, uncertainty blooming across their faces. You take us now, Donnie continued. You won't just be silencing kids. You'll be proving everything. Live. With evidence. With audio. With you on camera threatening us in a dark alley. For the first time, Grayson didn't speak. And then the silence broke. A car engine revved at the far end of the street. Headlights flashed. A dark sedan screeched to a halt. A woman stepped out. Sharp coat. Confident stride. Jamie's eyes widened. Ms. Lane. It was Margot Lane, the journalist they thought had folded, been bought. She held up a phone. I never stopped working, she said. I just needed proof Grayson couldn't bury. She turned the screen. Live feed. From the alley. Already being shared. Streamed. Grayson looked like a statue, still cold, defeated. Then sirens. Not close, but getting louder. Margot smirked. Oh, and I leaked this to every outlet in the city. Police are on their way. They're not Grayson's men this time, and they're bringing federal friends. Grayson turned. Ran. But he didn't get far. Two men who'd been flanking Jamie and Donnie didn't follow. One of them stepped aside. The other said, "We're done, sir." Grayson glared at them. They didn't move. Seconds later, a black and white police car pulled up. Then another. Then three. Flashlights, guns drawn, voices shouting, hands in the air. Grayson froze. And, just like that, the man who thought he ruled the city was on his knees, hands behind his head, as silver cuffs clicked shut around his wrists. The rest happened fast. The footage went viral within hours. CEO exposed by Shoeshine boy. Underground empire crumbles overnight. Grayson Capital stocks plummeted. The Ridgewell Fund scandal broke open, exposing corruption that led to 2 government resignations, 3 more arrests, and an emergency audit by the Securities Commission. Margot Lane's story made global headlines. Donnie was offered internships by 5 investigative journalism outlets before the week was over. But Jamie said no to every TV interview, every podcast, every spotlight. He just wanted his life back. He wanted peace, but the world didn't forget. People donated money to a GoFundMe set up in his name. Enough for a real home. Enough for school. Enough for a future. 1 week later, Jamie stood outside the Oak Tree Cafe, the same spot where it all began. Shoeshine box still under his arm, though he didn't need it anymore. Donnie joined him, sipping a lemonade. "You ever gonna open that box again?" she asked. Jamie smiled faintly. "Maybe, just to remember." He opened it. Inside, instead of brushes and polish, was a simple envelope, clean, untouched. He handed it to Donnie. "What's this?" Jamie shrugged. "My first reward." Grayson gave it to me. "Never spent a dollar." She stared at him. "Give it to someone else," he said. "Someone invisible." Donnie didn't say anything, but her eyes said it all. Pride, respect, maybe even a little awe. That night, Jamie returned to the small apartment that had been rented for him with donated funds. Clean sheets, a working lamp, a bookshelf with 3 new novels waiting for him. He sat at the desk and opened a notebook. On the first page, he wrote, "Truth is louder than power, and sometimes the smallest voice shakes the tallest tower."